Welcome. You have reached review time with Imperial, and today's review would be a Netflix original, Outer Banks Season 1. Let's get into it. So, I stumbled upon this series on Netflix. I was seeing a notification, like a preview, that Season 2 is about to pop up. So, I'm like, all right, where'd this come from? I don't recall seeing it before. And it's actually a decent series, for everything going on. I just did the review on the trilogy series of the Fear Street, so I thought I'd engage in this one. So it's a decent series. So this video will be a bit long. Subscribe to the channel, like the video. Let's go over the cast. So you have your main cast, Madeline Klein as Sarah Cameron. And you have Chase Stokes as John B. He's the main character. And you have Rudy Panko, JJ, which is the friend of John B. Madison Bailey as Kiera, which is the friend of John B. Jonathan Davis as Pope, also a friend of John B. So that group right there is the main crew that's rocking with each other. They're called the Pogues. And basically, they're called the Pogues. It's a reference to the throwaway from the lowest totem pole of the fish. And so, Outer Banks is an island in North Carolina, and it's split between the North and the South, of course. And you got the Pogues that's in the southern, lower class of the island, and then you have the Kooks, is the upper class, north side of the island. From there, you have Charles Easton, which is Ward Cameron, who is part of the Kooks. He come from the Pogues, grew up, but he struggled, fought to become part of the upper side, and he became a wealthy man or a rich man in the Outer Banks, and he's the father to Sarah Cameron. He also has two kids played by Julia Antonia as Wheezy Cameron, and his son Drew Starkey, Rafe Cameron. He has a wife named Rose on the show. You have Austin North played as the character Topper, who's part of the Kooks. He's a rich a-hole who's the boyfriend of Sarah. And let me see if I'm missing anybody else. You have Adina Porter, plays as Sheriff Peterkin. You'll see where she comes into play as I go over the review. So let's get into it. So the show starts off where you got John B., who's 16 years old. His mom left when he was 3, and he was raised by his dad. His dad has been missing for the last 9 months. And he still has belief that his dad is alive. So he's basically living on his own. And Dyfus is pretty much on his tails of his uncle came in and supposed to be the next parent guardian, but the uncle took a project in Mississippi to go build houses, and he hasn't been seen in like 3 months. So he's been living on his own out in the house and in the forgotten area in the Pogues, but Dyfus is on him because they're like, you don't have no parent guardian, you underage, and we basically have to put you in foster care. So he was a good kid before his dad went missing, and he was good in school and everything, but he fell off. Now his dad, John, has been Big John rather, John Sr., was on this, obsessed with finding this long lost treasure that was alleged to be on an island somewhere worth about $400 million. And there was reason to believe that the dad might have found it. So John never gave up that his dad alive or whatever. So you instantly see the rivalries with the teams between the Kooks and the Pogues. There's rivalries going on with of course the upper class kids is always um, looking down on the lower caste kids, and you have the lower caste kids that fight back, basically, all right, well, if y'all gonna treat us like we nothing, well, we gonna not play with rules and stuff. So you have you see off the back, John already has a thing for Sarah. And Sarah, of course, she's part of the Kooks squad in the beginning. And you see she's not, even though she grew up like that, she's not fully embrace the Kook lifestyle, because she figure her life is already pretty much made out for her, that who she's going to be. She want to earn her own respect or whatever. Meanwhile, the brother Rafe, he's a cokehead, and what you would call a complete mess up in the eyes of his dad. He can't do nothing right, and he's older. He's like 19, and one day hopes to take over the family business, but the dad is like looking at him like he can't do crap. He's unreliable, can't trust him. So back to John B. John B is the main character. Fisherman washes up on shore, who everybody in the town know. He had this fancy boat or whatever. Inside of the fisherman had John B's dad's compass, that he know that's his dad's compass. And so he's looking at, well, how the heck this dude end up with my dad's compass, and my dad been gone for 9 months. So that triggers him to say, I know my dad is still alive. So he starts his own hunt, and on the back of the compass, it was the name written Redfield. And Redfield, he start, while always watching his dad, picking up clues, and so it starts him on a hunt to pick up clues and start picking up the breadcrumbs that was left behind for his dad, to start figuring some things out. So he goes on his journey, him and his crew. Now, there was character development in all of the characters. This is actually 10 episode season, and if this was like, they did their Netflix, some of their shows like Amazon Prime. I guess that's why people like Netflix. You could binge everything or whatever and binge it all, but you could really break this down episode by episode. But when you binge it, it's hard to do it like that. You know what I'm saying? So, it was character development. So you had Kiera, who, her family is not rich, but they got some money, and she's actually part of the Kooks. Her family is, but she identifies with the Pogues because her family has a restaurant that's a booming restaurant that's a tourist attraction. Pope, his dad, owns a restaurant distribution called Hayward. So he works hard, and he wants Pope to be better than him. And Pope is real smart and has a chance to get a scholarship. However, Pope in the beginning is a real lame pussy. So, he kind of makes you frustrated in the beginning, in the earlier episodes, on his reaction. JJ, he's a straight Pogue, just like John B, where his dad, he was raised by his dad. His dad is a drunk and beats him, abuses him, and he pretty much got no hope, so he with whatever. So that's the character development that you see going on in the earlier episodes. John B works for Ward Cameron at the pier, and he's, I guess he does things on the pier with the boat and everything. John B does have his own boat from his dad, and they travel pretty much the whole season through on boats and stuff like that. And so they're keen. It's nothing to them growing up swimming in the ocean, lake or whatever, and getting on a boat. Teenagers just getting out there, man. So John B is picking up the breadcrumbs. So they figure out that they're out in a boat one day and they stumble across something that they see in the bottom of the sea. And when they see, it's the boat of the journeyman in the town that had this expensive boat. And they sitting there saying, whoa, y'all see that down there? So when they go down in there, they find keys. And it's keys to a rundown motel. So they go to the motel. The cops show up right while they're at the motel. And inside the motel, there's money in the safe along with a gun. You later find out that the gun is John Sr.'s gun. And the police comes in and takes the money. And it was like some documents in there. But they did take a stack of the money and the gun. So there's rivalry, like I said, between the Kooks and the Pogues. And one of the Kooks, in comes Topper. Topper gets into it with JJ, and then John B jumps in and they get into a scuffle, and then Topper almost drowned John B or whatever. And so JJ comes and pull that gun out on him. And so that starts the back and forth going on that you see with the whole season. And so what happens from there, John B, he's digging deeper. He believes like his dad, even more now that his dad is alive, something happened. And so as he digs deeper, the treasure, he digs some stuff in the office that his dad had. He finds that his dad was close and that his dad found that treasure or the location of the treasure. And so now he's digging deep, and when he took some scuba gear from Ward Cameron's off the pier. And so Sarah seen him take this return the scuba gear, and she told him pretty much she wouldn't say anything, so she didn't. But the little sister, Wheezy Cameron, she's dropping dimes the whole season. So she's like telling Topper, she be covering for Sarah when Sarah sneaks out, but pretty much she tells Topper everything. So Topper's jealous. He feel he's losing his girl. And so Topper tells Ward Cameron pretty much to watch out for John B. He took his equipment, and Ward pretty much approached John B, and John B didn't lie. And he just told him, yeah, I returned it. Nothing was wrong with it. And he pretty much fired him at that point. And so John B thought Sarah told on him, so he pretty much accused her, and he was frustrated with her. And when that took place, she was determined to clear her name. Basically, I didn't dime you out. I don't know how he knew, whatever. And so she showed up to John B to make peace. And so by this time, John B is trying to figure out what's going on. So as he digs deeper, they find clues. He needs to get into artifacts. So when he goes to Sarah's house, he sees this picture she has on the wall, her dad has on the wall, and they explain who the picture is. And inside the picture, it made him look, it was like a slave that became wealthy, and it triggered him to say, I need to find out more about this. So he had Sarah, who was her dad, when he purchased the house, there were artifacts in the house that he donated to the archives of the island. And so in order for them to go see it, he's going to need Sarah to get in, basically saying she want to check her father's stuff that he donated. And so they go take a trip, and they had to sneak on a ferry boat. And this is where Sarah and John B start to make their connection. Now, Topper has been trying to get Sarah to have sex with him and stuff like that. And every time she gets to that moment, she pretty much pushes the person away when they get real close to her. So but she's starting to connect with John B. And they get over there and they have a good day. And he goes in the archives. He takes pictures of a letter that was sent. And when he goes back, when they get back, and they pretty much were saying like, this was the best day we had. And then Sarah was like, well, we just gonna go back to normal how it's been. And then John B was raining, and pretty much this magical moment between the two. And he's looking at her, she's looking at him. He's like, it shouldn't go back the way it was. And then she's like, you're right. And then they kissed, and that was it. Meanwhile, John B takes the picture that he had of the artifact, and he gets his teacher to translate it. And pretty much it gave some coordinates, and basically before the slave was lynched and killed, it gave the slave to pass a message to his son. And so basically he took that was a message from his dad, but it also gave him the coordinates where the treasure could be. So they did steal some equipment where they found a ship that was underneath the water that the treasure was on, but it was nothing in there. So they thought it was all lost, but it triggered. They found another clue, and when they found that other clue, they knew the treasure was moved. So they found the treasure at an old house where an older lady stayed, and she was known to be mentally disturbed, and she killed a person or whatever. But none of the kids growing up never messed with her house. So they all joined a caper to pretty much go inside the house and see what's going on. Now, Kiera and Sarah, being as though they grew up together in that the Kooks lifestyle, they used to be best friends. But then when Kiera got close with Sarah dissed her, had a party, invited everybody, and didn't invite her. So of course Kiera got her back, and that's what pushed Kiera to be with the Pogues. Kiera got her back and called the cops on her party. Now they squashed the beef. Now, of course, Kiera is the girl of the group, and they said they pretty much got these rules for the Pogues, like the Pogues don't mac on each other and stuff like that. But John B tried Kiera, he kissed her, but then she was like, yo, pretty much like, we're not supposed to do that. And so he's like, oh, I misread you. But then she started feeling for him, but by that time he started feeling for Sarah. So she pretty much told Sarah, don't hurt him, he's a special guy, pretty much. But you also see Pope is feeling for Kiera as well. So at this point, back to the house that they found with the old lady. They're in their caper. They get into the old lady's house. They take off her breaker to turn off the electricity in her house and pretty much defuse her security system. And then what they do at that point is they're searching all through the house, and they go in the basement. And when they go in the basement, there's a well. They get the equipment to go down in a well, and then there's nothing there. It's like a sewage where the sewage goes, and it's real nasty, of course. And then they don't see nothing, but as they're climbing, pulling John B back up, he hit the wall of the well, and then it opened up to like a tunnel. So he goes through the tunnel, and inside the tunnel he finds the gold. Now he takes one piece of the gold. The old lady who's mentally disturbed comes out, starts shooting, but she's blind, so she's just going off of sense. So the lady's shooting, and they telling John B, you gotta get up here. And, they pulled him back up, and he left, ran out the house. He comes in, and they all happy he lived, and they all driving off. But then he pulls it out. Now they know they got gold or whatever. So then there's other subplots going on. So one of the subplots that's going on, Rafe, the older brother to Sarah, he got, like I say, a cokehead. It's a drug dealer on the island. The drug dealer fronts him some cocaine for his habit. He goes and try to sell it, doesn't get the money back. He owes the drug dealer money. Drug dealer comes and pretty much beats him up and takes his bike, tell him he owes him. So that same drug dealer is the owner of a pawn shop in the town. Once they get this piece of gold, they want to sell it. So they know the gold piece is worth $140,000. So they go to the pawn shop, pretty much telling the pawn people, yo, we sell it to us. The ladies like, I give you $20,000. They like, man. Then that's when they break it down to her to let her know they know how much it's worth. So she pretty much said, I got 70. Where I give you a cashier's check. And they were like, no, we want cash or whatever. So they was like, we don't got that kind of cash on us, but we can send you to the warehouse and you get the cash there. So you already knew that was a setup that was going to be happen. But they go, and when they go, the drug dealer has fake police lights on his car and tracks them down to pull them over. And when he pulls them over, he pretty much tells them all sit down, and he's going in the car to check their stuff. He gets the gold. Meanwhile, John B, while he's in the car getting the stuff, John B sneaks off and pretty much gets inside of his car that he doesn't know that he's in there. And when he gets inside that car, John B jumps on the back and chokes him, and everybody ran in. They got the gun from the drug dealer, and then they beat him up, and they got the gold piece back. And they pretty much at that point, they didn't kill him. Most people would have at that point, but they didn't kill him. And he pretty much they threw his keys. They pretty much told them that it's not over. And so what JJ and all them do, JJ found out his address. So they go back to the drug dealer's house, and they find his stash of money and weed, and JJ took $25,000. Now at this point, there was a subplot where JJ and Pope went over to the island of the north, where the Kooks stay at the north side, and where they was doing Pope was doing a delivery for his dad Hayward. And in that delivery, they seen Topper and Rafe, and of course it's rivalry, so they end up beating Pope up and taking the beer he had to deliver. And so on the way back, Topper had a boat out there, so they went in and unplugged Topper's boat so his boat could sink. So they didn't know who did it, but then there was security footage out there that showed the image of somebody, but they got to see who boat it was. So when the cops came to lock Pope up, JJ stepped up, pretty much said it was him, and it was him that took the boat. And Pope didn't want him to step up for him like that, but he's basically saying, you got a lot to live for out here. I don't, I'm gonna take the rap. So he went to jail, but his dad bailed him out and beat him up. The damages cost about $20,000, they said. So when he stole that money from the drug dealer, he came back to his dad pretty much like, I got the money. And so the dad basically saying, I'm gonna take that money and go flip it, like try like casino or whatever. He like, nah, I need you to do the right thing and pay the restitution. And dad was like, no. So the dad beat him up, but then he fought back and he took the money. And he pretty much was getting, like I said, abused earlier on. And he took the money, went and bought a jacuzzi, and he was spinning out of control in a sense. So meanwhile, John B, they got him, Dyfus got him, and so Sarah's dad stepped up and said, I'm gonna be the guardian of John B till he turns 18. And he brought her in the house, but he only brought him in the house because he knew John B was on to the treasure, and pretty much wanted to see what he pick his brain to see what he know. And when he did that, he found out that they did find the gold. So what Ward Cameron wanted to do is pretty much tell John B, oh, we're gonna go out fishing. So you already knew he was gonna try to figure out information and kill John B if he gave him the information or whatever. So when they went and did that, they were already planning to get the gold and how they was going to get the gold out the woman's house. Since that time, the woman had picked the house. She wanted to pick the house up for sale, so she went to the local realtor, what was Rose and Cameron. I mean, Rose, which is the wife of Ward, and she told it to her, but he didn't pay attention at first. So when he went out in the weather with John B, he questioned him about the treasure. John B just blew it off like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then Ward pretty much was like, I understand you don't trust me, but you need to. You know, how you going to be able to take the money and get your money off of it and everything? So he's breaking all this stuff down. But they end up getting in a scuffle, fighting, and John B end up fighting his way to get loose and takes they had a jet ski on a boat. He launched the jet ski down so that the jet ski, he could get off and leave in a jet ski. So he left. Meanwhile, Ward was chasing him, but then Ward knew he had to turn. He's well respected in the community, so he had to turn the community against John B. So he pretty much stabbed himself with the shark poker and came back and told the rest of the community that John B flipped on him and tried to kill him and was saying all these things. So he tried to flip Sarah against him and everything. Now she's torn and she's confused. And meanwhile, John B's on the run because now the cops want him. And he goes into, like I said, the straggler fisherman that had John B's dad's compass. He goes to the wife, and the wife pretty much broke down the story on how his dad died and everything, and how her husband ended up with the compass. Now, I said the sheriff earlier, what's her name? Sheriff Peterkin. You didn't know whether, the way they did her character, she was part of the nonsense, because she had the compass from John B, and the compass ended up in the hands of Ward Cameron. So you thinking, like, was she dirty? Like, is she in on it? So the way how the whole season was going, like she was in on everything or whatever. So you didn't know whether she was good or bad, but she's actually good. And she's pretty much, she took she seen the heat coming with the compass, so she took it from John B so that the heat wouldn't be on him, because it was stragglers looking for him. They was chasing him. Those stragglers ended up dead, but they had holes poked in them, and you seen the person who did it. Ward was the one who poked the holes in them, and he pretty much poked the holes in them so when they could bleed when they out in the ocean, and the sharks would come eat them up. And it didn't happen. They washed the shore pretty much. And well, they didn't watch the shore. Fishermen that was out there fishing, they grabbed them in the net or whatever. So John B was on the run, and then you had Wheezy, the little sister. They pretty much turned Sarah against John B. John B pretty much told her what her dad did, and she didn't believe him, of course, but then she approached the dad, told him what John B said, but then it made her think, like, is my dad capable of this or whatever? And because he pretty much like, did you tell your dad about the gold? Well, how did he know then or whatever? So of course they went to the house to get the gold. The gold was gone. So Ward had already got his crew together. They went down there and got the gold. They were planning, all of a sudden they was leaving the island and going to Bahamas. And he was taking Sarah with him right off the back, and Rose and the little sister was gonna come afterwards. So like I said, Ray was a complete mess up, and so he's been popping up, speedballing, hide up, and saying he gonna make it right, he gonna make things right. And so while on their way about to leave the airstrip, they discover that he's going to leave with the gold. So they go to try to stop him. They mean the Pogues, John B and the crew. John P comes on the airstrip. They stopped the plane, and he pretty much yelled out, telling Sarah that, you can't take the gold and whatever. And so the sheriff pulls up. So by this time, the sheriff already knows that Ward Cameron is guilty, because the wife of the straggler came and broke it down to the sheriff, telling her that what really happened, and that confirms John B's story. And so the sheriff, the woman's wife, pretty much told the sheriff, be careful, because Ward is connected to a lot of people. And then when it showed the sheriff look at one of her deputies as they could be suspect. So she went on loan. She showed up on the airstrip. She had the gun pointed at Ward, and when she went to handcuff him, he broke loose a little bit. But then she raised her gun and told him she'd shoot him. Right when she was going to do that, you heard a gunshot, and it was Rafe. He came and shot the sheriff. So she was bleeding out. Ward pretty much act like he was phoning in for help, told the brother take Sarah, and the sheriff was bleeding out. She was talking to John, pretty much telling him to run, because they're going to try to kill you, pretty much. Well, he going to try to kill you. So John B started running off, and then so it became this big fiasco through the town. John B killed the sheriff, and it went through all that. And then the Pogues was rallying up to try to help John B escape. So they was going through all these different hurdles and stuff like that. Long story short, the end of the series, JJ he got this old time boat that was real fast back in the day, that his dad was building and working on and finished. And so he got that boat for John B, and then Sarah broke loose where she was hiding at, and she jumped on a boat with him. Now the CBI came in, and they were trying to track, because a fallen sheriff got killed, so they also onto it. They're trying to track. Now the town had known for big storms. A storm came and knocked out the power in the southern side of the island, and so they were on the boat creeping past the main station of where the cops was, and the main cop was looking out in the sea. He couldn't see anything because he had night vision. But all of a sudden, when they was almost gone, the lights came back on the island, and all of a sudden they could see him out there, so they sped off. And by this time, it was already put out there that John had said to everyone that he was innocent and he didn't do it, and Ward was the one that did it. So they pretty much Ward talked to John B. It was a big storm coming, telling her if he loved his daughter to pretty much turn around or whatever. And then he spoke pretty much, he had this heart-to-heart, pretty much saying, you took everything from me, you killed my dad, and then you framed me for a murder I didn't do. I'm going to come back one day and I'm going to get you. And so he pretty much told him to fuck off. And so after that, they just spilled out in a storm. And then the other people that were chasing them, other boats, they went back. And when they went back, they kept on, and then they finally got hit by a big wave and knocked the boat over. Of course, it shows up next morning. They had life jackets on, and Sarah and John B was hanging on the boat. They both woke up, and then they consoled each other, and there was a boat off in the distance, and they pretty much used the gold piece that they had to flash the other boat down. And when they did, the boat ended up coming saving them. And they basically was like, where are you on your way to? And they like, just let us off at the next port. And then the guy the captain of the boat pretty much like, yeah, I've been in love before. You just want to get away. I understand that. Enjoy it while you can. And they were like, well, where are you going? And he said, to Nassau. Now, Nassau is in the Bahamas. And then they thought about that's where the gold is. So that's how it ended. That was the cliffhanger. And now you go on part 2 coming out June 30th, like I said at the beginning of the video. Subscribe, like, comment. Till next time.